I thought I'd give this theme music a go, because it means we're about to speak to a veterinary surgeon. Every so often, right about monthly, we check in with our good friends over at Ryder-Davies to see what might be areas of concern with regard to our delightful pets. And today, Georgie Clark joins us from Ryder-Davies, talking basically fat pets.
Good morning.
Georgina, good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning.
Now, fat cats, podgy pooches, all areas of concern, of course, and it's not just us humans that are overeating, it would seem, in life. How big, Georgina, is the problem of obese pets?
So we do see a lot of overweight animals. I think lockdown definitely didn't help with people not being able to get out and about quite so much.
Yeah.
Most recent studies are showing about 1 in 14 dogs are overweight, and
1
over
in
50%
14?
of our cats.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So quite a lot of our patients that we're seeing are overweight.
Yeah.
And obviously that's something we really want to try and improve, because it does have a big impact on their health.
Well, of course it does. Just as the percentage of cats, I stupidly spoke over you in the surprise that it was 1 in 14. What is the percentage of overweight cats?
So it's over 50%.
That's nonsense. I always thought that dogs, cats, all species that weren't us, knew how much to eat and were able to regulate their food intake. That's clearly not the case, is it?
No, not at all. So I know for a fact that my dogs would probably eat until they exploded if I'd let them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So most pets will just keep eating what you give them, and they don't know if what you're giving them is good for them or not.
No.
They're more than happy to eat junk food or eat anything that's bad for them. So.
Oh, dogs will positively hunt down chocolate even though it's poisonous to them. I mean, yeah, they are not in full control of... they will, as you say, eat just about anything. I thought cats were significantly fussier, but seemingly not.
They can be fussier, but it doesn't mean that they won't eat a lot of quantity of what's put in front of them if it is something they like.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously, it will have, I'm sure, the same impact as it has on us. It's bad for all sorts of things, isn't it?
Yeah. So with dogs, you're seeing things like an increase in their risk of something like arthritis, understandably because of the strain on their joints, heart disease because of the strain, respiratory disease, especially nowadays when we're seeing a lot of these short-nosed breeds in fashion. So we're seeing lots of French bulldogs and pugs and that kind of thing, where being overweight has an even bigger impact.
Yeah.
Increasing blood pressure, risk of cancers. And for a veterinary perspective as well, being overweight actually has a big impact on their risk under general anaesthetic.
So it's very much the same risk factors that us humans have with regard to obesity,
yes,
isn't it?
Very similar.
Yeah, okay. Now, it has to be said, this is our fault, isn't it? This has to be an owner's issue, surely.
So it is, but it's not. It's an old-fashioned thing of killing with kindness as such. It's not because owners are thinking, I want to make my pet overweight. It's a combination of accidentally overfeeding when they look at you with them big cute eyes, and also just not realising that their pets are overweight. I think a lot of clients, when we say, oh, they probably need to lose a bit of weight, look shocked. But because we're seeing so many fat pets, it's normalising it. So we're losing track of what's a normal body weight for them.
Is it also not just quantity, but also quality of food? I mean, as you say, those big eyes, it's very hard to resist a few pickings off the table, isn't it? But that's,
Exactly.
You've got to be careful.
Yeah, so some of the little tidbits we give our pets, and I'm not saying that we can't give them those, but you'll be surprised how many calories there really are in them proportional to, to a dog. If you give a dog a digestive biscuit, just one, that's the equivalent of you having a donut.
Is it? Oh, wow. Yeah, of course it will be. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, that in itself is something to think about. You mentioned about people not realising that their pets are overweight. What would be, apart from the obvious, what would be the signs that there is the beginnings of a problem at least?
So the problem when we see them every single day is we don't always notice when they're changing shape. So when you look at your pet, you want them to, if you're looking at them from above, you want them to always have a lovely hourglass figure. So you want them to come in a little bit at the waist behind the ribs.
Yeah.
And the same when you look at them at the side with cats and dogs, you want their tummy to come up a little bit as well behind the ribs.
Right.
And those ribs should be covered by just a very small layer of fat. You should be able to easily feel the ribs. So if you're having to have a little bit of a poke and a dig about to find their ribs, there's probably a sign that they're getting a little podgy.
Well, it's worth checking, isn't it? I mean, cats really appreciate when you start poking them in the ribs, don't they? So there is caution required in some of that. But
yes, definitely.
It's a good starting point. And it's something that we have to consider, because ultimately it's down to us, I guess, to solve it, Georgina. And how do we go about that?
So the best way is, obviously, if you're not sure, is to speak to your vet. And there should be a vet or a vet nurse who is available to help you out. A lot of practices offer weight clinics with one of their nurses. And what we look at there is working out their calorie requirement, making sure what you're feeding is right. So one of the most common things we see is you say to people, how much of their food do you give? And they say, I give them a cupful. Yeah. But what they're not doing is actually measuring out the food. So if you looked on the back of most food bags, it would say if you had a 15-kilo dog, for instance, they need however many grams of that brand of food.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is important to stick to those parameters and not just sort of keep overfeeding. And the same as anything, is ensuring they're getting enough exercise.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. They are bound by the same rules, again, as us humans. Exercise is crucial, isn't it?
It is, definitely. Obviously, again, it needs to be proportional, and you should never suddenly introduce more exercise because we don't want anyone getting injured. But making sure that they're getting plenty of walks a day with dogs. With cats, it's a little trickier.
It's trickier.
Be a case of trying to encourage a little bit of play, or sort of giving them food in something like a little feed ball so that they've got to run around, just so you encourage them a little bit, because they're a little less cooperative.
Just on that note, it is tempting to get hold of one of those laser pointers and go and make the cat go nuts with it. But for goodness sake, you have to be very, very careful. Them things are laser beams, and cats have very sensitive eyes. So that's not a great idea, right?
So, as long as you can buy ones that are for cats.
You can buy ones that are safe. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and again, be sensible with them. Let them have a play, but have it in a controlled space, and don't do it where there's anything precious you like in the room, because it is going to go flying.
I think we're a little bit of a victim of our own love for our pets, aren't we? Because as you're right, they give you that look, they make that noise, and you think, oh, they must be hungry then. They wouldn't bother with all this. And what do we go and do? Oh, you have some of this, darling. And, that's what we've got to be a bit stricter on, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And it is easier said than done. And I think a lot of people, when they come to the vet, they worry, but we're not going to judge, because we all have the same battles with our pets at home. Right. They all beg us and give us puppy eyes. So never feel like we're going to make a big judgment, because we're all there to help you. And if we say that they're getting chubby, we're not insulting. We're just trying to help.
Yeah, and extend their life, essentially, and extend their quality of life, more importantly. Yeah.
Exactly. So, it's quality of life. And also, there's been a lot of studies that have shown things that being overweight can take as much as 2 years off your dog's life.
Wow.
And we obviously want our dogs around and our cats and everything for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great advice. It's something we can all check and keep an eye on and maybe put some measures in place. And if we're not entirely sure, Georgina, the vet will happily assist you with dietary requirements and all of that, yeah?
Yeah, the vet or a veterinary nurse should be able to give you help with that, and they can tailor it to your pet, because obviously they're all individual and they all have different requirements depending on their lifestyle and their breed. And we thought fat cats was just a description of rich bankers, but clearly not. There are literal fat cats in and around us. Georgina Clark, who is a veterinary nurse at the Ryder-Davies Veterinary Facility. Thank you so much for your time. It's good advice, Georgina. Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care.